Article 27, Section 27.02A8, number 2 is a 112 square foot variance above the allowed 750 square foot maximum floor area of all detached accessory buildings to construct a 112-foot shed. Do we have a petitioner? Come on up, introduce yourself, and let us know what you'd like to do, please.
My name is Barry Young, 1301 Beach Drive.
Okay.
As you can see, I've got, I'd like to place a shed on my property in arguably, the most inconspicuous place. Also, I have a septic system that's raised. I don't want to impede on that, for evaporation and even, to dig a footing, or a bed for that, if possible. And apparently, my outside garage is bigger than the 750 square feet, so that's why I had to have the variance for the 112 feet.
Your shed's going to be right down pretty close to the lake?
Well, I don't know exact footage, I'm sorry, so I don't.
That's okay.
It's going to be back away from the lake. I don't know if anybody had a chance to get out and see the property. I tried to keep it back far enough not to impede any of my neighbors' views of the lake, but still have it close enough that I can use it for, lake stuff storage. And then also close enough up near the top that, patio equipment and stuff could be, I'm not getting any younger. It's a little harder to carry this stuff around. Unfortunately, I've tried to plan out my life pretty well, but I didn't anticipate grandchildren coming along, which has, added things like kayaks and fanoodles and life jackets. What else have we got here? Tubes to, pull them around. Beach toys, a portable canopy so when we're down by the lake in the summer. And presently, I'm using what you would call a Florida room or an enclosed porch in the back. It's like, it can be used maybe and I can't use it even to entertain or anything because all this stuff is in there now. And if possible, I would really like to have the opportunity to have another facility to store this stuff in.
Well, the first thing came to my mind when I saw the information is you're not going to put a lot of anything in 112 square feet.
Well, that's 8 by 14.
Yeah, but I was thinking the kind of stuff we normally worry about isn't going to be an issue, at least doesn't sound like it. You're talking about stuff that they use pretty much out on the water.
Well, yeah, I mean, I've got 4 grandkids now. I didn't realize I was going to have a 10-foot inflatable pink flamingo. I just, I'm grateful for it, but but I didn't anticipate these things. And it would, be able just to store that stuff in there, my patio furniture, I've measured it, and it will, in 8 feet, I can, get in there with the chairs and things, and kayaks, I can hang up above. I don't foresee any problem. The stuff that I need to have would fit in there, I think, very nicely.
Thank you. Board members. Mr. Flood.
Mr. Chairman, I was out there today. Is that little roped-in area you had there?
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
Yes, sir.
I want to compliment your neighbor on having those beautiful arborvitaes along that 4-foot fence.
Well,
that is a beautiful privacy, takes away that, Mr. Walker, I do agree with me on that.
Well,
That's nice.
It works, it gives you a little bit of privacy. I have spoken with him, he didn't seem to have, and I don't know whether this makes a difference. The shed itself will probably, and this might not make, I don't want to split hairs, but the shed will probably be 2.5 feet from that fence because, I'm going to have a bed to place it on. And I wanted to make sure, I put my little big self down through there, and I want to be able to maintain through there. There'll be ways to get the drainage there. I'm not going to just, I don't know if you saw in my backyard, I try to take care of things nicely and do things the right way.
I see your practical difficulty is your septic tank and your septic field, because you have a small 50-foot non-conforming lot, which is normal for all our lakes around here.
Yes, sir.
And I look at your practical difficulty, and I saw the septic sitting right there with the bricks
Yes,
on top of it. Yeah.
Yes,
Got
sir.
a riser in there. Yeah.
If at all possible, I'd like to stay off of that.
Absolutely. Yeah. I always look for the practical difficulty, and you got a non-conforming lot, it's only 50 foot wide, and you want to not get on top of your septic or your field.
Pardon?
You don't want to get on top of your septic
No,
tank
sir.
or your field. I'm surprised you didn't have sewers in there. I'm surprised, very surprised.
Well, there's been talk, there's always talk, but, and water is down at the end of the road now, so, hopefully one day, that can come.
A little bit of history. We didn't get sewers in the town until the early 70s.
I understand that, yes.
And the sewers served the 24 corridor primarily. And then later on, they were extended once Keatington got built. But Keatington #1 had to put a community septic over where the preserve subdivision is now.
Very well,
I mean, Marge Hodges, who was clerk way back then, she lived on Beach Drive. I mean, if anybody was gonna argue to get sewers in, it would have been Marge, but, to run pipe that far for that few people,
the reason I brought that up was that my parents lived on Mahopac, which is a private
Yeah.
road on Mill Lake, and the sewers came down that little private road. Most of the sewers were around the lakes to protect the lakes.
yeah.
Yes, sir.
And I was surprised to see it still on the septic in the well. That's kind of what I was alluding to, yeah. I have no problem with this.
Also need to note, and I'll read the form letter into the record. We have, I believe I wrote 7 neighbors. They're all have signed as in favor of this. The letter reads, I am writing to support Barry Young's application for a shed on his property located at 1301 Beach Drive. I have thoroughly reviewed his applications and have no concerns regarding the proposed construction. I encourage you to grant the variance for this shed. And the one I'm looking at now is John Carson at 1291 Beach. I have one from Karen Childress at 1325 Beach. We have Laura Souls, perhaps, at 1348 Beach, all signing the same letter. Geraldine Fletcher at 1285 Beach. Eric Marshall at 1286 Beach. Eric Bowles at 1309 Beach. Bowers, I guess. And John Carson, did I get him already? At 1302 Beach. Kimberly Davis at 1261 Beach. So it looks like you've covered the neighborhood pretty well.
Well, I wanted to be proactive, that they, a lot of times, you get these letters, it's like, well, what's going on? So I appreciate knowing what's going on, so I tried to give them a little heads up, hey, you're gonna receive a letter, this is why, and, welcome them to come down and look at what I had. I've got pictures here of the shed, I showed them. So, and apparently, they didn't seem to have a problem.
Doesn't appear so. Young lady, did you come to speak to this matter tonight?
No, just for
Okay, okay.
Mr. Chairman, I'd also like to note in our packet that the fire marshal has expressed no concern on this ZBA matter,
Okay, thank you.
which is I know most of us, that's a big one. The fire marshal has no concerns.
It just shows me you do your due diligence.
We have anything additional by the board?
I just want to thank the Youngs for bringing before this board something that should be brought in front of this board. So many times sitting up here, I think, Mr. Flood, you say it best about putting a size 12 shoe into a size, or 12 foot. This is what I believe a zoning board is for, things like this. No, not major hoop-de-doos, major anything, something that just doesn't fit quite right, that you clearly have been here a long time. I've been here not as long as these two over here, listening to them talk. I've only been here 35 years or so. But it gratifies me to have us, I don't know how we're going to vote, or I think I really do, to be able to help someone with something like this, because that's what we're supposed to be here for, in my view.
I appreciate your comments, sir. I appreciate the board's time, too.
We have nothing additional. We can entertain a motion if somebody's so motivated.
You want to do
I will defer to my seniors.
that? I know what that means. Mr. Chairman, I'm prepared to make a motion.
Mr. Flood.
Oh, okay.
Or Mr. Walker, would you like?
Oh, no. I've said my piece already.
And the matter of ZBA case AB 2023-08, Barry Young, 1301 Beach Drive, Sidwell, 09-16-229039. I would move that the petitioner request for two variances from zoning ordinance number 78, zoned R2, Article 6, Section 6.04, 1, a 4-foot side yard setback variance from the required 6 feet for a shed to be 2 feet from the property line to the west. Article 27, Section 27.02A8, a 112 square foot variance above the allowed 750 square foot maximum floor area of detached accessory buildings to construct a 112 square foot shed be granted for plans date stamp March 24, 2023, because the petitioner did demonstrate that the following standards for variances have been met in this case, and they set forth facts which show that in this case, the petitioner does show the following practical difficulty. Due to the uniqueness of this non-conforming 50-foot lot, his septic system is in the backyard, the location here, and also his field. The following are exceptional or extraordinary circumstances or conditions applicable to the property involved that do not generally apply to other properties in the same district or zone. As I previously stated, there are 50-foot lots on these lakes, and he has a septic and a septic tank and a field back in that area. The variance is necessary for preservation and enjoyment of substantial property right possessed by other property in the same zone or vicinity based on the following of facts. The petitioner has demonstrated that he needs a little, because of his grandchildren, he needs a little extra space there for their toys. The granting of the variance or modification will not be material detrimental to the public welfare or material interest to the property or to improvements in such zone or district in which the property is located based on the following findings of fact. There are letters of approval from his surrounding neighbors that have no problem with this variance grant, and it will not affect their property values. Further, based on the following findings of fact, the granting of this variance would not impair an adequate supply of light or air to the adjacent property. Matter of fact, the adjacent property has beautiful vegetation along that side where the shed will be installed. Unreasonably increased congestion in public streets. It will not increase the danger of fire and public safety. The fire marshal has ruled in this case he has no concern with this. It will not unreasonably diminish or impair property values within the surrounding areas, or in any other respect impair the public health, safety, comfort, morals, or welfares of the inhabitants of the Charter Township of Orion.
Support.
I have a motion on the floor by Mr. Flood, support by Mr. Walker. Anything additional from the board?
The only thing I would indicate is this property, Mr. Young's property, does not vary that much from other properties in that immediate area of Beach Drive. And looking at the aerial photos, most of them have sheds for their lake toys. And I think his request is in line with what has been granted to other neighbors if in fact they did need variances, and some of the locations look like they did, but, and by having a shed to put a kayak and other toys that the kids will use to play in the water with, it's not going to increase any traffic beyond the traffic that's already there. It's not like he was planning to come with some big thing and have parties every weekend and have people parking all over the place. It doesn't look like it's going to change in use much from what you can see in the photo right now.
All set, thank you. We do have a motion by Mr. Flood and support by Mr. Walker. Please call the roll.
Joanne Van Tassel,
Yes,
Don Walker,
Yes.
Mike Flood,
Yes.
Dan Darrow.
Yes, motion passes. Got to get busy now.
Build your shed.
To the board, thank you again for your time, and Ms. Van Tassel, I appreciate your diligence with looking to and noticing the other sheds, because I didn't really want to throw anybody else under the bus, but
Yeah.
I do appreciate your observation of
Yeah.
that. Thank you very much.
Yeah.
Have a good evening.
Good evening.
Now we move on to public comment.
You can go, but if you stay, it's going to cost you $5 each. Okay, it's up to you.
Thank you again.
You're welcome.
I have pictures again, so instead of making it hard to see, I printed off individual copies. So,
Thank you.
Jessica Austin at
Thank you.
3684 High Grove Way. And I'm just offering some supplemental information from the variance that was requested at the last meeting in regards to the garage that was requested to be converted into a private stable.
Okay, do me one favor, when you get back to the mic, introduce yourself and let us know basically what you're here to discuss.
Okay. So my name is Jessica Austin, 3684 High Grove Way. At the last meeting, there was a discussion in regards to our neighbor asking for a variance for the private stable that was on their property adjacent to Orion Oaks. They were requesting a 63-foot variance because the stable, as they were using it, was only 7 feet away from the Orion Oaks property line.
Let me ask 1 second of your time. That was denied, correct?
Yes.
Okay,
Yes.
it doesn't matter. You're certainly welcome to speak.
Okay, thank you.
Go ahead.
So in preparation for that meeting, I had requested some additional information, but I hadn't received it back from the Oakland County Health Department. And after the meeting, I had received the information. So on the first page, I was just giving an overview. I think when we were discussing the property at the last meeting, we were very focused in on just that one property. And I wanted to show an overview of the whole Mill Creek Village area surrounding, because there's some bodies of water there. And after the meeting, as I was talking to my neighbors, they were telling me, and they were reminiscing about how their sons caught their first fish in the pond there, how the streams were. And so the areas where it says MCV, that's Mill Creek Village Preserve, and that's open for our children in Mill Creek Village to play, and they catch fish, and it's an open area. On the first page at the bottom, I just listed out some of the major variances, or not variances, changes that have occurred to that property since the owner right now is moved in. It has been confirmed they have moved out of state, and they have set up a farm in Georgia, so they have vacated the property. All the animals have left the property. They are preparing the property, in my opinion, or just looking at it, for sale. There's an open issue with their pool in the back that they're working to remedy. And also they're, power washing the deck, and they're cleaning up yard waste. And so to me, it looks like they're preparing for sale. So my concern was with when the chickens were removed from the property, it did major tear up to the front yard. And an area that is directly adjacent to the tops of what appear to be two septic tank tops. And I grew up in the rural area. My husband and I, when we bought our house in Indiana, we were given a 1-inch thick file on our septic. And so we have a lot of experience with septic systems in wet properties. So I had asked the Oakland County Health Department for a copy of the septic layout in the finger system to see if this big tear up on the yard is any cause for concern, because as you know, there's basically 18 months still of manure on the property, and this property floods pretty frequently. If you look on about page 5, you can see that the answer that I received from the Oakland County Health Department is that the request for a septic on that property was denied. I received this from a phone call and then an email. And I asked her, and I said, before I talk to anybody about this, can you please verify this? Because this is kind of important. And she went back and she double-checked her records, and you can see in the denial that the water table on this property is 1.5 to 3 feet. So a septic system on this property was denied. The area that is torn up on this property, that's about 25 feet from my house, where the septic tank tops are, is all torn up. I did another test on the surface water in the area, and the surface water still has extreme fecal coliform in the surface water. But at this point, we don't know whether the fecal coliforms in the surface water, is it from the manure or is it from the lack of a septic system, if that is true. And so what I am coming to your board about is I need help. I'm a property right next to a property that's in the wetlands that, according to the health department, was denied a septic system, but there's people living there. Well, they're not living there anymore. They're getting ready to sell this property. For 9 years, there was just a husband and his wife living on the property. Then there was a husband, wife, and 2 children. If this property is a gorgeous, gorgeous property, and as was brought up, there is a main sewer trunk right on Mill Lake Road that this could tee into. And so this is a beautiful property, but it has some problems that I think need to be solved with the current owner and not passed off to a new owner, or a new owner who has 4 kids and they're doing laundry all the time.
May I interrupt you for a moment?
Yes.
I understand why you're here, and if I were where you are, I would really understand why you're here. It is for what appears to be a very valid reason, but I tried when everybody was here for the case to make folks understand this board has a very limited scope. This came to us only to decide if that shed or the building could be used as a stable. If so, granted a variance. That was denied, and the ability of this board to directly act stopped then.
I understand that.
Okay.
And I have tried to work through the Orion Township system. My husband and I started 7 months ago in putting complaints in about the manure. All of our complaints have been subsequently closed. I've lived here 9 years. I'm not a local. I need help with a liaison or somebody to help me walk through this system to have resolution on these health and safety and environmental issues that, quite frankly, shouldn't have gone on for 7 months. And I don't know how a property is being sold and lived in if it doesn't have an approved septic.
Have you tried, between the meeting and now, to make contact with anybody here at the Village Hall? Have you spoken with anybody in the hallway, building department, or the planning people, or the supervisor's office? Have you made any effort to bring it the other way?
Yes. I have met no less than 10 different times with both planning and an enforcement. I've had the runaround that my husband and I are like the Keystone Cops at this point.
You stated that these complaints are closed without action taken, and then closed, because ultimately they get closed once the action that is requested has been taken.
They're closed with tons of manure still on the property. David, would you like to speak to that?
Currently, they have an open violation to remove the building. And our code enforcer rolled in the manure and stuff with it, so we're waiting. We haven't had a response. We usually give 10 days. Kirk's been, I know he did speak with their attorney, and usually we give another 10 days because they are out of town. So he gave them a little extension from my understanding. And I did remind, I believe it's your husband, to contact the Department of Agriculture.
That was before we received the information that there was a home being occupied that didn't have a septic. Also, from what I've been reading from the Department of Agriculture, is that they really want people to farm. And they are very pro-farming, pro-agriculture. This property is not conducive to farming and agriculture.
Well, they'd be the first to be able to tell us that. Now, we're not manure experts and environmental experts. That's why I asked that you speak with them to.
No, sir. We
You know,
wrote
I
our
can have to go
first
back and
complaint, we brought our first complaint 7 months ago.
Yes, and.
We brought another complaint in January. To my knowledge, nobody has still walked that property. And why should I, as a homeowner who has followed the complaint system at Orion Township, this very, very clearly falls under both ordinances 72 and 160 for nuisance complaint and health, that it should be able to be resolved without my husband and I needing to contact the Department of Agriculture, especially since we subsequently received information that they shouldn't even have that they don't have a septic on the property.
Is that Oakland County's considered opinion, or are they willing to go to court with it?
Well, I didn't ask that. I'm trying to, this was the official, I did a request for information
Because they
on the
register septic
septic
systems.
system.
They register septic systems.
Correct. And this is what they sent me. It was denied.
Then I don't believe that the place can be sold and occupied if there was no septic system. I can't believe that that's a real thing.
And that's why I'm here, because they had the tank replaced just a year and a half ago. So if they had a tank replaced just a year and a half ago, it would indicate that there's a septic system in use. And also, when you look at the trunks and the lines for the township sewer, I don't see that there's property is tying into it. So this is an investigation that is out of my hands, and I need the help of the township.
Let me interrupt 1 second. Mr. Flood.
I sit on the township board, ma'am. I appreciate what you've done here. You've done your due diligence on this property. As the chairman politely said earlier, we have no authority to assist you with this. I understand you're looking for help, and you're working through the building department. You've contacted the township supervisor. What we find a lot on this board is that a lot of times we just focus on the variance. That's all, the statutory duty we have. A lot of times, when neighbors have disputes, it turns into a civil matter, which involves attorneys. I'm not suggesting you get an attorney, but this is a civil matter, which we have no authority we can help you with. As far as this,
I guess I'm trying to understand
as
how
far as this
when,
board goes, we have no authority to assist you.
I just want to say that the balls are in motion on this property.
Pardon me?
The balls are in motion on this property. It just takes time. We can't just get compliance overnight. We have to contact them. We have to go through a process. We are working on that process. I actually got an email from my deputy official this weekend saying, just for the heads up, I am actively working on these. It says, there are 2 enforcements likely to be cleaned up out at the other end, to the other end. 4212 Mill Lake was one of them. And I'm handling these, just not how or fast enough for the complaint. So we are working on these. Number one, they have to take the building down. And number two, environmentally, that's a tough road for us. So we got to wait until we get actually good, solid advice from our attorney before we can make any determinations about environmental issues.
As I previously stated, this zoning board of appeals has no authority to do anything with this matter.
so who is
However,
my,
our matter, we handled at the last meeting, when we handled the case, and it was denied based on what are in the approved minutes that we did tonight. And that, as far as our legal, that we can assist with you with.
I'm just letting to assure you, we're actively working on this. It's not going away. These things just take time, and I know it's not moving fast enough for you, but they do take time, because we have to make sure that everything's right before we are a day in court.
so will the issue with the septic then be rolled into what you guys are already working on?
I'll have to look into that. They may have a permit from a while ago. This might be a re-engineered septic field. So there's a
Right,
lot of issues
exactly.
that could be. They could have a septic field and they wanted to enlarge it because they wanted to add a bathroom. So there's so many things that I have to look at, and I'll have to look into that
Okay, so then the septic can get rolled into the other complaint.
if there's a violation, yeah.
Okay,
Ms. Van
thank you.
Tassel had something to say on this matter.
Beyond what you've heard from the building official just now, what else is it that you would like the township, not necessarily this board, but the township to do to assist you?
I think that the new, is it called the DBA system, will help to give some visibility, like, to my complaints, because that was one of the issues, is there was a complaint from September and a complaint from January that were just closed. And before the new system, they just disappeared, like into the ether. There's like no email to me, nothing, that just said they were closed. And so my husband and I are following the township procedures as we're told, but there's still no resolution. So, but I think that the new DBA system may give people like me more visibility. However, like, I can't even look into the DBA system to see what the description is with the number. All I see is that it's closed. And so for me, as a township, I'm sorry, I'm an engineer, 20 years engineering, went from engineering to teaching, taught physics and algebra. To say that my brain is linear is an understatement. And so when I read those ordinances that say this is what the rules are, and this is your process for complaints, I have an expectation that there's a resolution, that they just don't get closed out and, so, and I don't know where to go from here. As a township member, I don't know who's who. I don't know, when you bring up the who's who, it just says what their titles are. There's no name with it, so I don't even know who to call. So,
Okay, my suggestion right now is to stop by Township Hall during normal business hours and make a request at the building department and at the planning department to be notified if anything comes up regarding the Sidwell number on the property, and I don't have it right in front of me. The address may change, I don't know, but you want to be notified, is there a petition to split the property? Have they filed a building permit? I would do the same thing with the health department, to ask to be notified if anybody files for a septic permit on that property. And then every 6 months to a year, follow up and ask, sometimes people change. Some people leave the township for other employment and new people are hired. They may not know that you've made a request, so that's why I suggest 6 months to a year, check back and see what's happening. If you see any activity going on the property, that's another reason to call and find out if they're doing things the way they should or if they're trying to sneak something. So that would be my suggestion at this point in time.
yeah, and I appreciate it, and I apologize that I've jumped out of order. I am concerned that the property is going to be sold with no inspection, cash only, and I think that that's why we've gotten into some of these predicaments, is because when the real estate is hot, that these things just get overlooked and then they get passed on. And I know that every property has some nuances with it, but this is a little bit bigger than just like shrubs are over the border. I mean, the property next door had a horse, alpacas, chickens for like 3 years. I didn't say anything. Why? Because I didn't care, because I didn't smell it, I didn't see it. And I even, like, their alpacas and horse got out, and I ran down the road to get the owner. It's like, hello, your alpaca, whatever, llama is running around. And so, it's not that I'm on top of every single little thing. It's only because this is health, safety, and environmental,
I understand.
So, okay, thank you.
I thank you, appreciate you bringing forth this concern.
Thank you, this is very
Thank
well
you.
Yep.
documented.
And the last thing for me, to back up what Mr. Goodloe said, we all heard him tell you that he has ordinance enforcement working now. Now, I'm an ordinance officer in another municipality. I don't work here. But I can tell you from personal experience, you have to be reasonable with people. You have to give them time. I have fielded 100 calls, like he just said. What's taking you so long? Are you just sitting on this? No, I'm not. It's a system, and it has to work from here to here. If you're caught in the middle, it doesn't seem like it's working very fast. But when you get to court, and often that's where I say we, the township, will end up in a situation like this, I have to bring, for my employer, I have to bring a file. Dates, everything happened, how much time they had to perform, the fact that they didn't bother to perform, and now they should get nailed. So it is a process from front to back. He's telling you, and I have every expectation that he's exactly on point, that the process is working. So that's all I've got to say. I just want to let you know I've experienced it myself.
Okay.
And it does.
All right, well, thank you very much, and hopefully there is an approved, I hope for nothing more than there's an approved sewer somewhere where, I don't know where it is, and, or septic, and it will all be good, so,
Thank you. We do too.
thank you.
Thank you.
Next, we have communications. First thing I just want to mention is we all have gotten a bulletin from Lynn about a self-paced training. She's trying to determine the level of interest. So if you guys are on board with any of it, you might want to get a hold of her.
I've already,
You already have?
yeah, already told her I'm interested.
Okay. Anything else? Any library business or any other business?
Well, I got some library business.
Please, library's always worthwhile.
Joanne was at the last meeting, weren't you? Thank you. Book sale's coming up in less than a month. I think it's the 15th to the 20th of May. So keep that on your calendars. Drag your books to the library. Come buy books at the library. And I do have a question of the trustee on the board, Mr. Flood.
Oh, I hope I can answer your question.
I'm a big environmentalist, as you know, trees and
Right.
recycle and all that stuff. So I was looking at the no-haz lists, the upcoming days. Am I recalling correctly that we never paid to have cars taken to recycling?
We did back in 2012,
Okay,
and it was a $10 copay.
okay,
And because of the new consent agreement with Eagle Valley Waste Management, they contributed $25,000 per year towards the program. Back in 2011, 2012, we got reimbursed for that. And we have a budget of $25,000 per year for that collection. But when Waste Management gave us the 25, actually it increased our budget to 50. Now, you gotta remember now, in 2011 and 12, we were still coming out of that 2008 property crash, housing crash, and we lost 30% of our general fund money in this township, 30%. So they kept it on. What has happened in the last 10, 11 years, used to cost almost like $23 per car to process. Well over $100 now per vehicle for the vendor to process that. We went from a $25,000 budget to almost a $150,000 budget now, coming out of our general fund. So we can't absorb that type of, and that's even with Waste Management putting $25,000 a year reimbursement.
do we know how many cars?
I have all that information, and what I'm gonna do, this has been brought up before, and I'm gonna put a presentation on it at a future board meeting. And I'll
Okay.
have all the data and all the graphs put on that,
Can I attend?
to show where that's at.
All right, thank you.
And you're going to be kind enough to notify us when you're going to make that presentation so we can come and heckle.
It'll be on the agenda.
That doesn't tell me anything.
It'll be on a future agenda. It won't be
Well-
at this next board meeting, I guarantee you, we'll have time.
But you can,
I can reach out, I'll let you know.
all right.
I'll let you know. I've got all the data from 2011 till now.
It's always good to ally yourself with Ms. Van Tassel, I find.
But to give you some more, and you're going to get into my presentation here, everyone is squawking, all the communities here in northern Oakland County, on the cost of this. County now is looking at possibly starting a NACRA. Are you familiar with SACRA in
Yes.
southern Oakland County?
Yeah.
South Oakland Recycling?
Yep.
That's been down there since the 1950s.
Over in Royal Oak.
It's in Troy now.
What's
Yeah.
in Troy?
Oh, it's Royal Oak, it's South Oakland County, that's what
Yeah.
the SOC part
Okay.
stands
All
for.
right, I was just down there the other day. They're looking at that. The state I was telling Ms. Van Tassel this, the state just redid the solid waste law in Lansing. They're wanting to look at now really going heavy on recycling, composting, because of the sustainability of the landfills. So there's grant money and stuff going to be made available there, and we're going to be looking heavily at that, at how we can support this process for the household hazardous waste. Yeah. So there's a lot of balls in the air right now. Yeah.
Okay, and just so you got a little history, the reason SACRA was formed, it started out as all those communities down in the southeast section of Oakland County, where you've got 9 different communities in an area the size of Orion Township. They all went together to save money on their water rates and bargaining with the Detroit Water and Sewage, DWSD. That was the start of it. And then that grew into SACRA and other things like that. But it was the water and sewer costs that Detroit was charging, that they found it was cheaper for a SACRA-like authority to buy water from Detroit and then build Royal Oak, Oak Park, Hazel Park, Madison Heights, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, for water and sewage.
Another fact, too, is that if you remember correctly, Rochester Hills used to belong to the NOHAS. And the biggest event every year was at Oakland University.
They used to belong to what?
NOHAS,
Okay,
our NOHAS program, North
Okay.
Oakland Alzheimer's. Rochester Hills got out of it here, I'm trying to remember what year it was. It was just before the pandemic hit, because it was getting too costly for them. They joined SACRA. We're too far north to be part of SACRA. So there's a lot of history here, so, yeah. We're working on it.
okay.
And I will notify you when this comes about and get you all the information.
Any additional member comments?
I move to adjourn.
Support?
Sounds like a plan. Moved, adjourned, or support? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? We're done. Thank you.